That's what I'm hearing as well.
It's a connection. It's a connection.
That's great. You know, with Bingham, I think we have to remember that, and after San Jose, I'm sorry to say, you know, his time in Portland, he was really good for the Portland Timbers, and Alias Ivicic, who was really good as well, was shown the door. And it was contentious when Ivicic left and went to New England, and it's because the Timbers were picking Bingham instead to be the number one goalkeeper. And so he's got it in him. He's got it in him. He did it for San Jose. He was a great keeper for San Jose. And so I think that's really interesting. We just got off the phone with Dean Smith, and he's not showing his cards just yet. It sounds like players don't know what's happening just yet. And granted, the Wednesday night game, quick turnaround, managers are waiting to the last second to see how everybody's recovering. I did wonder, is this a time where Kalina, you've been brilliant. Let's give Bingham a start and see how he does with it. And Bingham is a guy that has shown in this league that he'll get in there and he'll do a good job.
Right. No shortage of options. It's just about playing the right chess piece at the right time. Speaking of big chess pieces, let's go to the queen of the team, Wilfried Zaha. One thing, we talk about identities of Charlotte FC. It is DPs underperforming. Whether or not we want to admit that that's the case, the fact of the matter is the guys getting paid the most amount of money at Charlotte FC have statistically underperformed based on what the expectation is of the league. And Zaha has been playing a little bit better, but I think Tom Bogert came out and said, like, he's just not paying good enough. I think a lot of people agree with that. So for you, what does Zaha... What do players, even Agyemang is getting better, but what do players like Zaha and Abada, I know Abada scored, and to be fair, I think I could have put that away myself, but I'm going to give him credit. He was in the right position when it counted. What do our DPs need to do, and should we be looking to add one more? I mean, we're still under the cap. You know, what does Charlotte's big-name guys need to be doing to get back on track?
I think Zaha, I would say he's trending in the right way. His last two games, I'm seeing a difference. I think there's more purpose in his game. He's being more definitive when he gets on the ball. Early in the season, he'd get on the ball and he'd do a little, a little roll with it, bottom of the foot. He'd cut back in on his right. And the whole momentum going forward, he thought was lost because he just wants an individual moment. And I think now you're starting to see him, let's go at defenders. Let's be more positive. And he's not as visibly frustrated. That game in Columbus, again, I reference it. He spent more time throwing his arms in the air, complaining at his own teammates, complaining with the referee, and that's where his energy went. I've seen a difference since then, and I see more commitment. He's getting back. He's helping out defending. I didn't see that as much before, prior to that Columbus game and prior to that. So the attitude is changing. His performances are changing. Does it get to the level that everybody expects for the amount of money he's making? It's not there yet, but it's definitely trending in the right way. In terms of another player coming in, I think Patrick Agyemang is probably one of the most feared strikers in the league. I can't imagine a center back coming into the game thinking, "Oh, I've got him today." There's not many center backs who come away that are unscathed coming up against Patrick Agyemang. He gets you. That ball goes in behind. Every center back in this league is thinking, where is he? Because he's coming. So he's got that going for him, and he creates so many opportunities. It's that final moment, though, that consistency. Could there be somebody else that pushes him? Is it from within? I mean, Tiger Small looked good coming on. Toklamati, there's been opportunities for him, hasn't quite happened. So is that where you go and spend the money? I think that's the obvious choice. That's where, if you're going to go spend the money, bring in another number 9 to really push things forward, because you got Vargas out wide, you got Abada. Pep Biel, for me, has been a little more quiet since he was out injured. He still scored that great goal against Columbus, but when he was injured for the game where he missed against Columbus, away at Columbus, coming back in, he hasn't taken over the game like he was before. Like before, he was getting on the ball and there was magic happening all the time. Hasn't quite got back to that level.
All right, let's talk about the bad guys for a second here. Now, when I was coming up and growing up, I was a fan of, and I'm a big Dwayne De Rosario guy. After that, Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, like those were the guys I grew up. I grew up with that Toronto FC. Obviously, Giovinco. Maybe I mean I don't necessarily put him on Mount Rushmore yet of MLS players, but he certainly had a heck of a legacy. Now they've spent money. They've got big names. They've got Insigne. They've got Bernadeschi. We thought things had clicked. All of a sudden, it's not. You mentioned at the beginning of this interview, it looks like things are kind of trending up for them. But what's going wrong for them, and what can Charlotte look to exploit tomorrow?
There's a lot. I think there's a lot. And I say that in the same breath that I give Robin Fraser a lot of credit, because a new manager's come in who's more or less inherited this team. He's attached himself to this team. I've heard other managers that have come in and the team's not doing well, and they say, whoa, that's not my team. That was before. You need to change that team over, and then you can put my name to it. Robin Fraser hasn't done that. And you would say, is that a mistake? I think that shows his character. I think that shows why Toronto brought him back. He was assistant coach at Toronto FC during those times that you're talking about, you're referencing. He was assistant coach. So he knows what it takes for the pedigree for a player to bring in, to get there. So right now, when you look at the current situation of the squad, I think you've got, it's so top heavy in terms of names and in terms of output. Insigne and Bernadeschi. Insigne has had one decent game so far all year, and he's on 16 million. 16 million. And at one point in the season, game in, game out, people were talking about his defensive effort. And I thought, you don't pay 16 million to talk about a player's defensive effort. Bernadeschi has been a lot more, has been brighter. It's been good. There's been a couple games where he's just not in it, but I mean, he still carries that fear, and he can change a game still. So what it comes back to, though, I think they still need to figure out, are they in it for the long term, or can they be shown the door and just wipe the slate clean? And not only with them, the rest of the players, what does it look like? I just don't think, when you reference that team, the championship winning Toronto FC team, there was top end talent with really good quality squad players. And that's just not happening right now. I would say there are a couple players, couple signings that are starting to come good, which I doubted at the start of the year. Theo Corbeanu is, at the start of the year, I didn't see it. I'm starting to see it now. He's got a change of pace, which is surprising. He's got a bit of swagger, personality that's coming out. Ula Brynhildsen, though, is the main one. And from day one, Robin Fraser was saying, this guy is, remember Carlos Ruiz? He was,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, nicknamed Fish. Top goal scorer for FC Dallas. Robin was referencing him. He said he's like Fish, and couldn't see it. And I've been out to the training ground and just couldn't see it. The last 3-4 games, and we chatted to Robin Fraser today. We said we can see it now. We're starting to see it. The way he uses his body. He scored 2 goals in the last 3 games. He could have had 3. A tremendous bicycle kick that he could have scored against Nashville. The guy is brimming with confidence. So those 2 players have been signings in the offseason. And so maybe, is it Robin's guys? Is it Jason Hernandez, the new GM? Maybe they can spot the talents, and it's just going to take transfer windows for them to get it right. And to be honest, for me, I think it's going to take at least getting Federico Insigne, Lorenzo Insigne, out the door. Federico Bernadeschi, maybe not, but they need to either produce or you need to move on.
Yeah, and I think there are a few teams right now as we kind of enter this, new transfer window in the summer. Obviously, Europe is getting it started. I just think there are a few teams that are thinking the same thing about their top guys. Looking at UFC Dallas. But I have another question about the midfield for Charlotte. I think and we had Lori Lindsay on earlier in the season, and she had an expert analysis talking about kind of the breakdown in midfield. When you look at Charlotte's midfield, what do you think is kind of that best combination? I mean, they have so many guys who you feel like it's like plug and play. You have BL up there, you have Wesley the captain, but what do you think is their best combination, and where do you think that there's been a breakdown? You think that's been improving? Like, what have you been seeing during your analysis?
It's interesting, and not going by his performances this year so far, even though I thought he was pretty good against Red Bulls. Eric Williamson, I thought when Charlotte signed Eric Williamson, he is going to be a regular feature in Dean Smith's starting 11. And he had that rough game against Seattle to start the year. Not many guys had a great performance at the start of the season. But Eric Williamson, and I tracked him closely before I've been in this role. I was with Portland Timbers as their TV broadcaster, and so I've seen Eric on the training ground. I've seen him game in, game out. At one point before he torn his ACL twice, of course. Both times when he tore his ACL, he was one of the best midfielders in the league. He gave you, I reference him like a Darlington Nagbe type feel with giving you more punch in that final third. And that's where Eric can get to. And I thought that was a good reset game for him against the Red Bulls. The fact that his use of the ball was good. He was getting back in a little bit more disciplined defensively, which at times when he was with Portland, you could be critical of him, but he was giving you so much going forward. You could deal with his deficiencies defensively that he wasn't getting back all the time. He needs to get back under Dean Smith. I think Dean Smith has made that clear after that Seattle game. So anyways, the best combination, we haven't seen it yet from his performances. I think he's got to be in there. But saying that, Bronico's been really good. He'll huff and puff and cover so much ground, and he can't be easy to go up against. And Westwood's experience, I mean, how can you get him out? He's played every single minute at 35 years old so far this year. So it's interesting. So Eric, though, I would say when he starts playing his top level, I think he's got to be with one of those two guys.
Absolutely. And we'll give a little shout out to Westy here, one of our top sports anchor and reporters, Danielle Stein. Big Westy fan and goes both ways. So big fans of Westy here on the show. Before we let you go, just kind of any final thoughts for the fans. I mean, the pessimism, Charlotte sports go together like butter on bread. I mean, it's just a matter of fact. Charlotte FC has been the one shining light that we've had in a while. So is there anything you think fans can be looking forward to tomorrow in this road stretch? Like, what should people be optimistic about?
I think your style is so attractive with how you play. And a few weeks ago, about a month ago, I was on the training ground. And in the modern day football, you ask managers, what's your style? And they'll go and they'll put pieces on a chalkboard and do this and that. You know what Dean Smith said? I win. And that was it. That was his answer. And I know it hasn't happened in the month of May, but Dean Smith knows how to get the best out of guys. Dean Smith knows how to put out a plan to go get a win. And I think that style where you're getting the ball forward into that front four, and then all of a sudden now that, like the Columbus game, they bullied Columbus at home. I think that was a little window into what this team could be. And if they can get there consistently, and that front four could be the best front four in this league, but they're not close to it yet. They haven't individually hit top level. At times they have individually, but collectively they haven't hit that top level. So when I watch their games, I think, could this be the game? And there's certainly periods where they're a handful. If that starts to click in the second half of the season, watch out. And there'll be a lot of teams in what I think is the strongest conference, the Eastern Conference. There's not many teams who will want to take them on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ross Smith with MLS. We seriously appreciate your time and cannot wait to hear you on the call tomorrow. It's going to be a great game.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you very much.
Man, as you guys can tell, Jeb does not watch soccer at all. So, I mean,
right, I don't have any idea what I'm talking about.
The nuances. You just kept pulling them out of the hat, flexing on us, man. That was awesome.
No, and I think it's an exciting time to be a Charlotte FC fan.
Yeah.
I really, one more time, really appreciate Ross making time for us. I mean, if you guys have the opportunity to watch the game tomorrow on MLS Season Pass on Apple, it's a great broadcast.
They could use the support too.
Yeah, and I think people, this is when the team needs to get the city around them.
Yep.
So really
let them feel that love.
Forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to get back to winning ways. Like you said, there's a lot of opportunity. So it should be good.
So we do want to get to, there's big news today from the Trump administration that Elon Musk will be leaving as a special government employee. He has 134 days or so, and he sounds like he's just days away from that, so he's taking a step back. But he did talk about Doge and the role going forward, so we'll play this in its entirety as it happened earlier at the White House.
An honor to be with Elon. He's my friend, and he's done a fantastic job.
He didn't need this. He didn't need it. And we find out government's a little nasty on occasion. Hello, Peter.
Yeah, at times. Hello, President Trump.
Government's a little bit nasty, Peter. You haven't noticed that. You've had a charmed life, right?
You tell me.
Very charmed. I think you've had a charmed life. I think what I'll do, if you don't mind, numbers have just come out which are rather extraordinary, and I thought I'd play a tape of one of the people who I've respected over the years, from Joe Kiernan and Rick Santelli. This just came out, and we'll just play that for a second.
Personal income is up 0.8%. That is almost triple the expectations. I'll tell you that the income numbers, really, for the first 4 months of the year, they're stellar. They're really stellar. I mean, I could go back and look at the first 4 months of many different years. Really very strong numbers, and you're right. This administration is criticized for just about everything under the sun. I've never, ever in my lifetime had glimpses into the politics of an administration in the form of transparency like this one. Why don't we be, give credit where credit is due? Income really shooting up.
Rick, I also thought everybody was going to get one last order of imports that were going to be tariffed, and they were loading up on things. How the hell they already fix the trade, or not fix it, but to cut it in half? That's crazy. So there wasn't a lot of front loading of things that they needed before the tariffs hit.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it really does call into question some of the conventional wisdoms. And, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next month when we get this number, or we see some of the other numbers like current accounts, see how they fared. Because I don't know, I've been watching these numbers a long time. I don't think I've ever seen the trade deficit cut in half in 1 month.
Not bad. Right? Not bad.
Come on, guys.
I see Howard and Scott are here, so it's great. You guys want to stand over here? You might as well. You're the ones that help produce those numbers, and it'll only get better. The tariffs are so important, and that's why we were so happy with the decision yesterday where the tariffs continue, because without the tariffs, our nation would be imperiled. We would really be imperiled. I think I can say that with great surety, Scott and Howard. And so we were very happy to get that decision, that big decision yesterday. And today it's about a man named Elon, and he's one of the greatest business leaders and innovators the world has ever produced. He stepped forward to put his very great talents into the service of our nation, and we appreciate it. And I just want to say that Elon has worked tirelessly helping lead the most sweeping and consequential government reform program in generations. And the kinds of things that he's found and his people have found. He's brought a group of very smart people in, and they found things that are pretty unbelievable. I have to say that the numbers that we're talking about are substantial, but they're going to be very much more substantial with time, because many of the things that we're working on right now, we're going to have to remember Elon as we find them, but the numbers could double and triple. Because many things, we don't want to go out with them until we're sure, but we've found things that are unbelievably stupid and unbelievably bad. With the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon's delivered a colossal change in the old ways of doing business in Washington. DOGE has installed geniuses with an engineering mindset and unbelievably talented people and computers. I actually asked Elon one time, what's their primary thing? And they have a lot of primary things, all having to do with being smart, but he said the thing that they're really the best at is working with computers, so that they can't be outsmarted by somebody that's not so honest, that happens to also be good with computers, but not as good as these people. But the mindset in the senior ranks of every federal department, and it's really changed. And with Elon's guidance, they're helping to detect fraud/waste and modernize broken and outdated systems. So as you know, we're talking about various systems and changing systems, and sadly it takes a long time to do that. You'll change, let's say, a system at IRS and computerize it properly, where the job can be done in 1/10 the time, but it takes sometimes years to rebuild those systems. But we've started, in many cases we've started. I will say that this has less to do with Elon, but the air traffic control systems We're bidding out to the best companies in the world, those systems right now. They were what the previous administration was horrible what they did. They spent billions and billions of dollars, and in the end, it didn't even come close to working. They tried to hook up wire to copper, and it can't be done. And they just spent billions of dollars and just wasted money. Actually made the system much worse. So we're going to get a brand new modern system. Congress is working with us on that, and we're going to get it done as quickly as we can. But it's in the works, and once it's done, it'll be good for 30 years. But we have a system that's 48 years old and would have a modern computer hooked into a very outdated computer, and they don't hook up. I mean, they didn't hook up. So after spending billions of dollars, they turned on the system, and in never any cases from local to countrywide, they never worked. More than 75,000 bureaucrats have voluntarily left their taxpayer-funded jobs to come out and really do the job. Countless wasteful and unnecessary contracts have been terminated, and you know that we have terminated many, many contracts, and many contracts, Elon, are right now being looked at, and it may be 6 months, it may be almost a year in some cases. We're going through procedures, we're going through courts, and we'll remember you as we announce billions of dollars of extra waste, fraud, and abuse. Just as an example, DOGE canceled $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education, $101 million, and that was just a small section of the Department of Education. $59 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City, and the landlord never made the kind of money that he made in the last short period of time. $59 million to a hotel in New York City, $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. In Burma, does anyone know about Burma? $42 million for social and behavioral change in Uganda. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. I can say it's $2 billion to Stacey Abrams and her environmental movement. There was $100 in the account, and all of a sudden they found $2 billion in the account. And I assume that's being looked at. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I assume that's being looked at. Think of that, $2 billion. And then Lee will tell you there's another one over there for $20 billion being spent on another environmental question. $20 billion. Not 20 million, a lot. Not 200,000, which is a lot. So think of it, in her case, you have $100, and now all of a sudden she gets hit with an infusion of $2 billion just before I take office. $20 million for Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. Nobody knows what that's all about. Nobody's been able to find it. $8 million for making mice transgender. So they spent $8 million on making mice transgender. And those are better than many of the others. I could sit here all day and read things just like that, but we have other things to do. So it's much, much more than just that. We're totally committed to making the DOGE cuts permanent and stopping much more of the waste in the months to come. We want to get our great, big, beautiful bill finished and done. After that, we put some of this into the bill, but most of it's going to come later. We're going to have it cauterized by Congress, affirmed by Congress. In some cases, we'll make cuts. In some cases, we'll just use it in a different layer to save the money. But it's hundreds of billions of dollars. DOGE has also fully modernized the federal retirement process and continues to work very hard on the IRS modernization. But we're taking that over with DOGE. Many of the DOGE people, Elon, are staying behind, too, so they're not leaving. And Elon's really not leaving. He's going to be back and forth, I think. I have a feeling. It's his baby, and I think he's going to be doing a lot of things. But Elon's service to America has been without comparison in modern history. He's already running one of the most innovative car companies in the world. You look at his factories and compare them with some of the old factories we have, and it's a big difference. And the most successful space company, and I guess in history you would have to say the largest free speech platform on the internet, etc. Yet Elon willingly, with all of the success, he willingly accepted the outrageous abuse and slander and lies and attacks because he does love our country. I know that very much. He loves our country. He comes from another country, a country that's going through trials and tribulations, I would say. But he's all about the USA, and Americans owe him a great debt of gratitude. So I just want to thank Elon for his time as a special government employee. Can you imagine? They call him an employee, but it's a special government employee, and for coming and helping us. And he really has changed the mindset of a lot of people. A lot of people thought, maybe we'll cut 1% or 2% or 3%. Then they said, wow, we can cut a lot more than that. And we're going to do it very surgically. We're going to continue on the march. We're making America great again. When I was in Saudi Arabia, and we were in, as you know, 3 really great countries, predominantly the 3. Qatar was great, UAE was great, Saudi Arabia, incredible. Such an incredible experience to be in those 3 countries. But the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and I must tell you, the great leaders of the other 2 that we just mentioned, they all said the same thing, that the United States is the hottest country right now anywhere in the world. And 6 months ago, we thought it was dead. It was like a dead country. And it would have been a dead country if we didn't have the right result on November 5th. It would have been a horrible, horrible situation was going on with the borders, with transgender for everyone, men playing in women's sports, and so much more. But they were saying the hottest country anywhere in the world. And then I played that little clip because that was one person who's respected, or 2 people, because Joe was in that one too. Joe's a good man. But that was one group of people saying something about the success of what we've done over the last 4 months. They cannot believe it. In the one case, they said they've never seen anything like it as long as they've been doing what they've been doing. They've been doing it for a long time. So I want to thank Elon for helping. And again, the United States right now is the hottest country anywhere in the world. There's no country as hot, and we're doing really well. When I left, we had no wars, we had no problems. We defeated ISIS, we rebuilt our military, and we had no inflation. And when I came back, we had a lot of inflation. We had wars all over the place. We had the embarrassment in Afghanistan where we gave up billions and billions of dollars of military equipment, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, I believe. I believe that strongly. We have Russia with Ukraine. We had the attack on Israel in October, the horrible attack, October 7th. Horrible, horrible attack. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And now we have something where we're really healing a lot of that. We stopped India and Pakistan from fighting. I believe that could have turned out into a nuclear disaster. And I want to thank the leaders of India, the leaders of Pakistan, and I want to thank my people also. We talked trade. And we said we can't trade with people that are shooting at each other and potentially using nuclear weapons. And they're great leaders in those countries, and they understood, and they agreed. And that all stopped, and we're stopping others from fighting also, because ultimately we can fight better than anybody. We have the greatest military in the world. We have the greatest leaders in the world. We put one of them in charge of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as you know, General Raisin Kane. And we wiped out ISIS, completely wiped out ISIS in 3 weeks. They said it would take 5 years, and we did it in 3 weeks. And that's the way it is. But we don't want to have to use our military. We want to be peace through strength when we can. And that's the way we're going to have it. So I just want to thank Elon and all of his people. Most of those people are staying. Almost all of them are staying, and they're going to be with us. And you're going to see the results coming long into the future. Even a year and 2 years later, you're going to see a lot of the results, and those hundreds of billions of dollars are going to be adding up, and they're going to continue to add. It'll be interesting, really interesting to see what the final number is going to be. But again, Elon gave an incredible service. Nobody like him, and he had to go through the slings and the arrows, which is a shame because he's an incredible patriot. The good news is that 90% of the country knows that, and they appreciate it, and they really appreciate what he did. And I gave him a little special something we have here.
Thank you.
A very special that I give to very special people. I have given it to some, but it goes to very special people, and I thought I'd give it to Elon as a presentation from our country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elon.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. You've seen a lot. The luck on this is amazing.
That's right. Large lot.
Well, let me say perhaps a few words that this is not the end of Doge, but really the beginning. My time as a special government employee necessarily had to end. It was a limited time thing. It's 134 days, I believe, which ends in a few days. So that it comes with a time limit. But the Doge team will only grow stronger over time. The Doge influence will only grow stronger. It's I liken it to sort of Buddhism. It's like a way of life. So it is permeating throughout the government, and I'm confident that over time we'll see $1 trillion of savings and a reduction in $1 trillion of waste and fraud reduction. The calculations of the Doge team thus far, in terms of an FY25 to FY26 delta, are over 160 billion, and that's climbing. We expect that number will probably go over 200 billion soon. So I think the Doge team is doing an incredible job. They're going to continue doing an incredible job, and I'll continue to be visiting here and be a friend and advisor to the president. And I look forward to times being back in this amazing room. By the way, isn't this incredible? Look at this incredible. It's stunning. I think the way that the Oval Office, how the president has just completely redone the Oval Office is beautiful. I love the gold on the ceiling.
Thank you. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
That's been there a long time. That was plaster. Nobody ever really saw it. They didn't know the eagle was up there, and we highlighted. It's essentially it's a landmark, a great landmark, and that's 24 karat gold, and everybody loved it. And now they all see it when they come in. So it's been good.
The Oval Office finally has the majesty that it deserves, thanks to the president. So I look forward to continuing to be a friend and advisor to the president, continuing to support the Doge team, and we are relentlessly pursuing $8 trillion in waste and fraud reductions, which will benefit the American taxpayer. That's it, really. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
right.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you, President Trump. The president mentioned that you had to deal with all the slings and arrows during your time at Doge. There's this.
Well, some of the people, some of the media organizations in this room were the slingers.
Well, so there is a New York Times report today that accuses you of blurring the line between.
Is the New York Times, is that the same publication that got a Pulitzer Prize for false reporting on the Russiagate? Is it the same organization?
I got to check my Pulitzer.
I think
counter.
it is.
It is.
I think the judge just ruled against the New York Times for their lies about the Russiagate hoax, and that they might have to give back that Pulitzer Prize. That New York Times. Let's move on.
Okay, then
Next
President
question.
Trump, I got one for President Trump. So President Trump, Biden aides who used to work here are in talks with Republicans in Congress to go and testify about what they did or didn't do to possibly conceal President Biden's decline. Do you think that Dr. Jill Biden should also have to come in and testify about what she did or didn't do?
Well, I hate the concept of it. It's the wife of a man who was going through a lot of problems, and everybody that dealt with him understood that. And I guess it came out during the debate loud and clear. That was the biggest signal of all. They have to do what's right. The country was there was a lot of dishonesty in the election, as you know, 2020. That's been now caught. People understand it was a rigged election. And when you go further out, when you see the AutoPen, I mean, I think the AutoPen is going to become one of the great scandals of all time, because you have somebody operating it or a number of people operating. Because I knew Joe Biden. Joe Biden wasn't in favor of opening up borders, letting 21 million people into this from prisons and mental institutions and gang members. He wasn't into that at all. And who signed these orders, proclamations, and all of the different things that he signed that set our country so far back, that was so bad for our country.
With the auto pen, how would it work? Like, we're in the Oval Office right now. If there was a group of rogue staffers that worked for you who wanted to advance a bill or an executive order without your knowledge, how could they do it? How do they go
Well, it's very
behind
hard
a
because
president's
I'd
back?
read your newspapers or your media the next day and I'd say, well, I didn't approve that, and I would find it. I mean, they wouldn't get away with it for long because I'd say, I never signed that. Who the hell signed that? Auto pens, to me, are used to sign letters to people because we get, I think they said 20,000 letters a week, and you like to be able, when somebody takes the time to write a letter, it's nice to sort of write back. And auto pens are meant for that. Auto pens are not meant to sign major proclamations or tax cuts or borders, anything having to do with the border, which is so important. And if it happened on my watch, I would be able to see it because the next day or sooner I'd be reading about something that I knew nothing about and who the hell signed this. So I almost never use the auto pen. In fact, yesterday I was signing about 81, I think it was 81 proclamations and statements to people that I think should be signed by us. I think when you write letters to foreign dignitaries or presidents or prime ministers, you should be signing those letters, not done with auto pens. I understand he signed almost everything with an auto pen. It's a very dangerous thing. It really means you're not president. Whoever operated the auto pen, and we think we know who that is, and it was actually more than one person, but that's not what the presidency is all about. I hardly used to use it.
Reinstate the tariffs on China. You said that they violated the agreement with the U.S.
Well, they did. They violated a big part of the agreement we made. You know, if you read that whole statement, I was very nice to them. I helped them because they were in trouble with the stoppage of a massive amount of business. But I'm sure that I'll speak to President Xi and hopefully we'll work that out. But yeah, there's a violation of the agreement. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, can you give us an update to the latest ceasefire agreement that Israel has agreed to, but Hamas still considering?
Well, they're very close to an agreement on Gaza, and we'll let you know about it during the day or maybe tomorrow, and we have a chance of that. And I think we have a chance of making a deal with Iran also. They don't want to be blown up. They would rather make a deal. And I think that could happen in the not too distant future. That would be a great thing if we could have a deal without bombs being dropped all over the Middle East. That would be a very good thing. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We want them to be safe. We want them to have a very, very successful nation. Let it be a great nation, but we can't have them. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. And I think we're fairly close to a deal with Iran.
Mr. Moss, question for Elon.
Yeah, please.
You said just now that you look forward to being a friend and advisor to the president. So do you expect to continue advising the president and Doge informally, or are you going to sort of shift your focus entirely to your companies?
Well, I expect to continue to provide advice whenever the president would like advice.
I hope so.
I mean, I expect to remain a friend and an advisor, and certainly if there's anything the president wants me to do, I'm at the president's service.
Mr. Musk, on Doge, you said that there was $1 trillion promise for cuts from Doge.
Yes, I think we do expect over time to achieve the $1 trillion.
But what have you found in your time here was the biggest roadblock to getting those cuts? Was it the cabinet, or was it Congress, or something else? What was the biggest roadblock from your work?
It's mostly just a lot of hard work. It's really not any one person or Congress. It's going through really millions of line items and saying just each one of them makes sense or does not make sense. Obviously, at times when you cut expenses, those who are receiving the money, whether they're receiving that money legitimately or not, they do complain. And you're not going to hear someone confessing that they received money inappropriately. Never. They're going to always say that they received money appropriately for an important cause. Naturally, that's what you'd expect. So we just have to. It's just a lot of work going through the vast expenses of the federal government and just really asking questions. What's this money for? Are you sure it's actually being used well? Many times we can't even find anyone who defends it. So for a lot of the expenses, there is actually no defender at all. And then we have to just go work through the process of stopping the spending, where there's often literally no defender. Nobody even knows why the money's being spent. It's truly absurd. I mean, we find situations where there are millions of software licenses with 0 people using them. 0. Exactly. This is the quizzical expression. You're like, surely, if there's millions of software licenses, someone should be using them. No, and then we've got to go through the process of saying, okay, look, if no one's using the software, we need to terminate this software license agreement. That's everywhere in the government, by the way.
Mr. Musk, what do you think would be easier, colonizing Mars or making the government efficient?
It's a tough call, but I think colonizing Mars and making life multi-planetary is harder. And as I said, we do expect to achieve over time the $1 trillion of savings. We can't do it in like a few months, but if you say by I think the official end of DOGE, which the president may choose to extend, is the middle of next year. Say by the middle of next year, with the support of the president and Congress, could we achieve $1 trillion of savings? I think so. We're on track to do so.
Do you have faith that Congress is going to do
Thank you, Mr. President. You had mentioned earlier in the week that DOGE had become a whipping boy, and as the president mentioned, you went through a lot to go through this process. Yeah. Was it worth it for you, and what would you change?
Yes, so what we found was happening was that if there were any cuts anywhere, then people would assume that was done by DOGE. And so we became like essentially the DOGE boogeyman, where if any cut anywhere would be ascribed to DOGE. A friend of mine's daughter, who's at law school at Georgetown, thought that DOGE had cut the Senate, internships the legal internships for the Senate, and we have nothing to do with that. So if they have been cut, it's not to do with us. Just as an example. So it just became a bit ridiculous where any cut anywhere was somehow DOGE, including things that made no sense, and we would agree made no sense. There are many things that occur in the government because it's the banal evil of bureaucracy. It's sort of the frankly largely uncaring nature of bureaucracy. It's as the great Milton Friedman said, money is spent most poorly when it is someone else's money being spent on people you don't know, and that's how federal spending is. And then you can't really even blame the individuals because the way the government works is complaint minimization. So when you do try to, when someone within the government tries to stop that money being spent, there's usually someone that complains, and then their manager will say it's not worth the trouble, just pay it anyway. That happens over and over again.
So was it worth
I think it was an important thing. I think it was a necessary thing, and I think it will have a good effect in the future.
Thank you, President Trump. This week there was a video on board a plane that showed the First Lady of France slapping her husband, Emmanuel Macron. Do you have any world leader to world leader marital advice?
Make sure the door remains closed. That was not good. No, I spoke to him, and he's fine too. They're fine. They're two really good people. I know them very well, and I don't know what that was all about, but I know them very well, and they're fine.
What do you think about this Democratic Party plan to avoid being swept in every battleground state again by spending $20 million to study how to speak to American men?
Well, they spent $2.8 billion. We spent 1.5. We spent much less. We spent about half of what they spent, and at the end they were $28 million short. They had to be. They spent $2.8 billion. It's a lot, but they couldn't get $28 million at the end, and now they want to spend. I read that they want to spend money to learn how to talk. That's fake. You don't want to be fake. You shouldn't have to hire consultants to say what America needs, because then the consultants should be running the deal, not them. But I read that they want to spend a lot of money in each state. So we won all 7 swing states, 7 out of 7. We won a lot more than that. We won the popular vote. We won everything, and they want to spend money to find out what they did wrong. And I mean, I can tell you what they did wrong. I can tell you every one of their programs when they say men playing in women's sports. I would say that's not a winner. When they say transgender for everybody, I think that's not a winner. When they say open borders so the entire world population of criminals can pour into our country, I don't think that's a winner. I mean, I just gave them that for free. But I don't know if they'll change their ways. I see them all the time. I see people that I know in Congress, Democrats, they're trying to justify some of the things I just said. You can't justify them. They're, you know, I always hear they're 80-20 issues. I say they're not 80-20, they're 97-3. They might be 99-1. They're not 80-20. They wish they were 80-20. And they're wasting a lot of money if they're going to continue with that nonsense.
And this one's a little bit more of a page 6 question, but back when you hosted The Apprentice, you mentioned once in 2012 that Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. He has since found himself in some very serious legal trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage. I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, that relationship busted up. From what I read, I don't know. He didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden. You know, it's different. You become a much different person when you run for politics and you do what's right. I could do other things, and I'm sure he'd like me, and I'm sure other people would like me, but it wouldn't be as good for our country. As we said, our country's doing really well because of what we're doing. So it's not a popularity contest. So, I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated, whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact on me.
Mr. President, on the Big Beautiful Bill, would you like to see the Senate build in some support for your tariffs on the Big Beautiful Bill, or should that be a standalone bill?
I have great support on the tariffs. I mean, I was so honored that we got that ridiculous stay lifted, because that would have taken away presidential power. It would have taken away everything that was granted by the founders. It would have been a terrible thing. And it would have, most importantly, would have left us vulnerable. We have a lot of countries that use tariffs on us and use them viciously, actually, viciously. And if we didn't have the power to use tariffs on them, and instantly, not when you go back to Congress and try and get hundreds of people to agree on something, that would take months to get just one simple proclamation. If we didn't have the power to counteract their powers, you wouldn't have a country left. We have to act fast. We have to be fast and nimble, as they say. And that was a really great moment, I think, yesterday when that stay was lifted. And hopefully now we'll go to court and just win that battle. Because if we don't have the power to do what they're doing to us, we are going to be a great nation no longer.
Elon Musk was once idolized by folks on the left in this country before joining your administration. Now he's considered a hero by conservatives. Why do you think this man, what he's done in American life, has been so politicized? Does it
well, his life has been amazing. I mean, I look at so many different things. I look at that rocket being, guided back into position. I've never seen that before. I thought it was a space movie. I thought it was a movie. You look at what he's done in terms of communication. It's been unbelievable. So many different, even tunnels going underground, not having to go through all the process of going, he's got a company that does that. He's got so many different companies. Starlink, as an example, he saved a lot of lives, probably hundreds of lives in North Carolina. I don't even know if you remember, but I called you. They needed Starlink in North Carolina. And I didn't know what the hell Starlink was. I said, what is it? Who owns it? He said, do you know Elon Musk? I said, yeah, I happen to know the gentleman. This was before his government stay. And they said, we really need it, because North Carolina became an island. It was, people had no communication. They had no access to anything, and they were dying. And I called up Elon, and you can't get it because it's so successful. It's very hard to get. And he had so much of it brought over there, and they told me it was unbelievable. It saved a lot of lives. So, he's just done a lot of things. I don't think he gets credit for what he's done. But he's a very good person, too. You know what? If he wasn't a good person, but he did the same things, I'd probably maybe speak differently. He happens to be a really good person, who loves the country.
Mr. President, on the one big, beautiful bill, you had indicated this week that there were some things you didn't like about what had passed in the House. What changes do you want to see the Senate make? And you had also indicated there were things you didn't like about the bill. What would you be suggesting he push senators to change in their version?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll go first. It's an unbelievable bill. It cuts your deficits. It cuts, it's a huge cutting. But there's the things I'd like to see maybe cut a little bit more. I'd like to see a bigger cut in taxes. It's going to be the largest tax decrease or cut in the history of our country. I'd like to see it get down to an even lower number. I was shooting for a slightly lower number. I would have liked to have done that. But with all of that being said, when you look at the tax cut and the fact that the original tax cut, which made us so successful. We had the most successful 4 years in the history of our country, the economy, and this is going to be even better. And you see that by the reports that came out just yesterday or tonight. I guess they were released this morning at 8 o'clock. You see the kind of numbers where somebody that's a pro is like, whoa, I haven't seen numbers like this since I've been doing this. These are human emotions of professionals that have never seen numbers like, and we've just started. The bill is a great bill. It's going to be jiggered around a little bit. It's going to be negotiated with the Senate, with the House. But the end result is it extends the Trump tax cuts. If it doesn't get approved, you'll have a 68% tax increase. You're going to go up 68%. That's a number that nobody's ever heard of before. You'll have a massive tax increase. If it does get approved, you'll have a large tax cut, the largest we've ever had. When you add the past tax cuts that we got you, the Trump tax, they call them the Trump tax cuts. It's an amazing bill. It does amazing things. With all of that, it's going to be adjusted a little bit over the next coming weeks, and I think it's going to be passed. The Republicans want to pass it. With all of the great things it does, including an extension of debt, it's the extension. We have to extend the debt. If we don't extend debt, we're in default. Now, the Democrats might like our country to be in default, but in 250 years, we've never been in default. That was handed to them by a very well-meaning man that gave it to them because he thought it was the right thing to do. It could have been their problem before the election, but this man thought it was the right thing to do, and he was well-meaning. I don't hold anything against him for that, but that was put on our plate when it should have been on the Democrats. September 28th, a famous date. It should have been taken care of by the Democrats, but this person, a man of power, gave it to us so that in June that comes due. Well, we have to take care of that because if we don't take care of it, we have a country in default, and we don't ever want to have a country in default. I'll tell you, a certain senator, Elizabeth Warren, said that she would never, ever allow a default on our debt. She would never let it happen, and she would like to get rid of the debt ceiling, what's called the debt ceiling. I call it the debt extension because we really need an extension, that she'd like to see that gotten rid of. And there are many people that agree. Many Democrats agree with that. But we gave that through, and I don't want to say an error. He did it well-meaning. They gave that to us. It was a Democrat problem just before the election. Would have had a huge impact on the election. And to our benefit, we won anyway, but to our benefit. But felt that really for the good of the country, we should extend that. But Elizabeth Warren and various other people would like to see that, her whole career she wanted to see it terminated, gotten rid of, not being voted on every 5 years or 10 years. And the reason was because it's so catastrophic for our country. And I always agreed with her. That was one thing I agreed with her on. Now, I haven't spoken to her, but I would say that if you asked her that question now, she'd say, no, it's their problem. But it's a very unfortunate situation. It's a very unfair situation. And she happened to be right on that. It should be gotten rid of, or it should simply be extended. But that's one of the things that gets taken care of in this bill. That automatically gets extended for a 4-year period. And it should be. But I agree with Elizabeth Warren on that. I think you should get rid of it. It's too catastrophic.
Mr. President,
Yeah, please, go ahead.
what message do you
like percent to international students, are they still welcomed to study in the United States? And one question for Mr. Musk.
The students, well, we want to have great students here. We just don't want students that are causing trouble. We want to have students. I want to have foreign students. I think Harvard, it's close to 31%. That's a lot. Our country's given $5 billion plus to Harvard over a short period of time. Nobody knew that. We found that out. I wouldn't say that was a Doge thing, but we found that out over a period of time. That was sort of a Trump thing. We ended up in litigation for other reasons because they're very anti-Semitic. And in finding out and in going through the books, we found out that the country gave them $5 billion plus, much more than that, actually. And we're having it out with them, and let's see what happens. I think we have a very good, well, it's a very sad case. It's a case we win. We can't lose that case because we have the right to make grants. We're not going to make any grants like that. But I don't think Harvard's been acting very nicely. I think Columbia wants to get to the bottom of the problem. They've acted very well. And there are other institutions, too, that are acting, but Harvard's trying to be a big shot. And all that happens is every 3 days we find another $100 million that was given. 2 days ago we found $200 million more. The money's given to them like gravy. I'd like to see the money go to trade schools where people learn how to fix motors and engines, where people learn how to build rocket ships, because somebody has to build those rocket ships.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see trade schools set up, because you could take $5 billion plus hundreds of billions more, which is what's spent, and you could have the greatest trade school system anywhere in the world. And that's what we need to build his rockets and robots and things that he's doing, and to build lots of other things. And I went to school with people. In some cases they weren't good students, but they could fix the engine of a car better than anybody I've ever seen. They could take it apart blindfolded. They had an ability at that, and they did very well. They made a lot of money. It's a very skilled job. It's great. But I'd like to see a lot of money going into trade schools. I've always felt that. And we probably found our pot of gold, and that's what's been wasted at places like Harvard. And the money's been wasted. Yeah, please.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask quickly, Mr. Musk, is your eye okay? What happened to your eye? I noticed there's a bruise there.
Well, it wasn't. I wasn't anywhere near France, so. What does
that mean?
No,
I didn't notice his eye.
First lady of France.
Getting slapped,
I didn't notice.
I was just watching around with little X, and I said, "Go ahead, punch me in the face," and he did. Turns out, even a 5-year-old punching you in the face actually does.
No, it was X that did?
Yeah.
X could do it. If you knew X,
I saw his mom right now. But I didn't really feel much at the time, and then I guess it bruises up. But I just watched around with the kids.
I didn't notice it, actually.
President Trump, I got one. I know that you try to stay pretty neutral because not your war, but
And by the way, not my war. I just want to solve the problem for people. This was not a war that was going to happen if I were president.
Right, and so not your war, but as you try to fix it, and as you survey this hellscape of the Ukrainian front lines,
it's horrible.
And you and your team deal with a very stubborn Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Do you look?
And Zelensky.
Yeah. But do you look at this
Very
conflict
stubborn Zelensky too.
any differently now? Like, do you look at this and see Putin as the good guy or the bad guy?
So I've known him very well, and I went through a lot of things with him because Russia was, the Russia hoax turned out to be a total hoax. New York Times, they got a Pulitzer Prize. They have to give back the Pulitzer Prize. That's my lawsuit, and they're doing very poorly in that lawsuit. But they wrote stories about how it was true and it was false, and a lot of Washington Post also. I have gotten to see things that I was very surprised at. Rockets being shot into cities like Kiev during a negotiation that I felt was maybe very close to ending. We were going to solve a problem, and then all of a sudden rockets got shot into a couple of cities and people died. I saw things that I was surprised at, and I don't like being surprised. So I'm very disappointed in that way. With that being said, I'd like to see it end. 5,000 people, I think the number's even more than that, but 5,000 people a week are being killed. Mostly soldiers, but also people that live in little cities and towns throughout Ukraine. And I'd like to see that stop.
And I asked Caroline this yesterday, but I want to ask you, directly, so many of the things that you're trying to do are held up in court right now. If the courts are going to have so much influence over U.S. policy, do you wish you would have just become a judge instead?
Yeah, well, look, it wasn't meant to be that way. If you look at the founders, the president had certain powers, and you have your three groups, and they all had supposed to be equal, pretty equal powers. But you can't have a judge in Boston running foreign policy in places all over the country because he's got a liberal bent or he's a radical left person. That's what the executive branch is for, and you have checks and balances. But we had millions of people pour into our country, many criminals poured into our country, murderers, mental institutions from all over the world being emptied out into our country. And if we don't get them out and get them out quickly, could lose your country very easily. This is a bad, that anybody would allow this to happen to our country. You know, with all of the things, we took over inflation, we took over some wars, we took over a lot of problems that didn't exist when I was president. None of it existed. We wiped out ISIS. Other than that, we had no wars. Putin was never going to hit Ukraine. Israel would have never been attacked. That attack, as you know, Iran had no money. They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have money for Hezbollah. They had no money whatsoever. That wasn't going to happen. All of these things that happened weren't going to happen. You wouldn't have had inflation. So it's very sad when I came back. But the thing that is the hardest is that they allowed 21 million people into our country, and many of those people are stone cold criminals. They moved their criminal population into the United States, and of all the things that are bad, I solved inflation, I believe, already. I got the fuel prices down. The fuel prices came down. That's one of the reasons. They screwed up the energy. They screwed up the cost of gasoline and oil and gas. And you had tremendous inflation, the greatest inflation probably in the history of our country under Biden. And when people said, oh, but the economy was, no, the economy was terrible for the people because they couldn't afford the energy. And the energy brought everything else up. Energy is the big deal. But with all of that, we solved that already. In 4 months, we solved it. $1.99, $1.98 gasoline. First time people have seen that in a long time since my term. But the hardest thing to solve is millions of people pouring into our country, many of whom are criminals. Because remember, these countries are smart. Their leaders are very street smart. They're sending the people that they don't want. They don't want the people that are there, that are law-abiding, that are productive, that are working hard. They want people that are in jails. We have them. They allow them to come in. And I always look to the other side, like, why would somebody do something? In business, I try and study, why would they want to do this? Why would they want to sell it? Why would they want to buy it? One thing I can't figure out is, what would an administration, what were they thinking when they allowed millions of people from prisons all over the world, not just from South America, Venezuela, all over the world, from the Congo in Africa, hundreds of people, thousands of people from the Congo, rough prisoners, from Asia, from Europe, rough parts of Europe. Why would they allow them to come into our country? Why would they do that? It's the one thing I can't figure out. And I don't believe it was Joe Biden. I really don't. I mean, look, he's been a sort of a moderate person over his lifetime, not a smart person, but a somewhat vicious person, I will say. If you feel sorry for him, don't feel so sorry because he's vicious. What he did with his political opponent and all of the people that he hurt a lot of people, Biden. And so I really don't feel sorry for him. But he wasn't a person that would allow murderers to come into our country. He wasn't a person that was in favor of transgender for anybody that wanted it, take kids out of families, et cetera, et cetera. So I just don't understand why a thing like this, how a thing like this could have been allowed to happen. Very sad. It's very sad for our country.
I think the fundamental moral flaw of the left is empathy for the criminals and not empathy for the victims. Empathy for the criminals, but not empathy for the victims. And there's been way too much of that. That needs to stop. To the president's point, There's been immense judicial overreach that is unconstitutional, that was never intended. And it's undermining the people's faith in the legal system. It needs to stop. It's gone too far.
Mr.
And just today, we had, just a couple of hours ago, we had a great decision from the Supreme Court, thank goodness, that was very important. We had two important decisions yesterday on the tariffs, because again, we have to be able to fight a fair fight with other countries. Howard, would you say? We have to be able to use tariffs to fight people that use tariffs on us. I mean, if we didn't have that power of tariffs, we would economically be destroyed as a country, because they will destroy us. Other countries will destroy us with unchecked tariffs. We can check them when we have the use. They tried to take that power away from us, and if you take that power away, we're not going to have a country. We won't have an economically viable country. But it's very important on immigration that we be able to get people out without having to go through a long court case. I mean, it was up to some of these judges. Every single one of these millions of people, criminals, prisoners that were let go from jails because they save a fortune when they do. They brought them into the United States. You know what they're saving? The money they're saving? But some of murders, it's very important that we're able to get those people out of here fast, bring them back to their country where they belong. And those countries take them, because if they don't take them, they have to go through the wrath of the United States, and they take them. But we have judges that don't want that to happen. And it's a terrible thing. That's going through the court system right now, that whole situation. But when ICE and with Border Patrol, they've done an incredible job. When they do this incredible job and they capture 100 killers and drug dealers, and we can't keep them for years here as we go through trials. We have to get them out rapidly, and we know who they are. We know who they are. And we're very careful about who they are, but we have to get them out rapidly, or again, we're not going to have a country. Okay? Maybe one or two more. Go ahead.
Are you concerned that tariff may also affect companies like Tesla, which has parts manufactured abroad? And this is also to you, Mr. Musk.
Well, he's going to end up building his whole car here. I mean, I thought he built his whole car. Pretty much he does. He's got incredible factories, and like I looked at one in Texas. It's unbelievable. No, all of the manufacturers will build their parts here too. I mean, it used to bother me. They make a part in Canada, a part in Mexico, a part in Europe, and it's sent all over the place, and nobody knew what the hell was happening. I think it's ridiculous. You build a car, make it in America, and I gave them a little leeway on that. You know, gave them some leeway. But over the next year, they've got to have the whole thing built in America. That's what we want. We want America to buy American-built cars. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
How was your meeting with Jerome Powell?
Good meeting. It was a good meeting.
Are you considering? Thanks, guys. Keep going. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Let's go straight out here. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right, that is done. We have filed many reports about the North Carolina DMV. I know myself personally, when we moved here, it took us about 8 months to try and get a North Carolina driver's license. We had to come back more than once, twice, 3 times even, not necessarily because we had the wrong documents, just because the lines were long and the appointments that we scheduled just didn't happen. So it sounds like North Carolina Governor Josh Stein promising a huge overhaul. And we, like I said, we filed many reports on WCNC.com about the significant issues, the long wait times, staffing shortages, the difficulties with appointments, the things that I've pointed out on, because we have personally all dealt with these things. And I'm sure that folks that are listening to this or may listen to this at some point can probably resonate with this. So the governor discussing some changes today. Obviously, the Real ID law is in effect now, so a lot of folks trying to get themselves up to date with the federal regulation there. So let's go to the governor and see what he has to say about the huge overhauls that need to happen.
Good morning. Welcome to Raleigh East Driver License Office. I'm Paul Tyne, the new commissioner of DMV. Thank you for joining us today and to talk about the challenges we have here at DMV and some early steps we're taking to address those challenges. A key part of my approach is listening and responding to feedback from customers and employees. Before I get deeper into how our team is going to address these challenges, I want to bring up a customer with a sort of story that we are working to address. I'd like to introduce Jocelyn Wright, a mom from Durham who is going to talk about her experience joining her child to get a license.
My name is Jocelyn Wright, and I'm a mother of a teen driver. My daughter became eligible for her teen driver level 2 license in February of last year. In preparation, I went to the DMV website and tried to get an appointment so she could take her driving test. I stalked the website every single day. I was able to finally get her an appointment probably 4 months after her 16th birthday. However, I had to drive an hour and a half in order to get an appointment. We drove there, she passed her driving test, she got her license. We prepared for her Teen Driver 3 license, which meant that she had to wait 6 months, do an additional 6 hours of driving, complete the form. We did that. And then it was my responsibility to then find her another appointment so she could go back to the DMV to turn in her form, take her new picture, and get her Teen Driver 3 license. However, there were no appointments available. She became eligible for her license December of last year. Because of that, I had to then go to social media to parenting groups to find out if they had some luck in walk-in appointments at any of the DMV locations. I was able to listen to some other parents and their concerns. They were all frustrated and going through the same things that I was. She became eligible in December. However, we were not able to get to another DMV location until Mother's Day weekend, that Friday of this year. So again, I drove an hour to wait in line because there weren't any appointments available at the Henderson location DMV. Once we got there, we knew that the walk-ins were available to come in and be serviced at noon until closing. When we got there, there was a sign on the door that there was a lunch break from 11 to 1. So we stood in line, we waited, and then it started to rain. We stood outside in the rain and waited until we were serviced. We were the last people serviced that day, and we walked out at 4:58 with the worker that was there at the location. I almost did not make it into the building. I pleaded, I begged, and I let the DMV worker know that I drove an hour just to make sure that my daughter could get her license, and if she would please, please, please let us wait inside of the building instead of standing outside in the rain. We stood so long that my feet were swollen, and she accommodated me and allowed us to come in, and we were the last people that she serviced that day. That was my experience with the DMV, and I am positive that this situation will improve, and by telling my story and those of others, it will help us to get to a resolution of better service with the DMV. Now if we'll have Secretary Hopkins.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And that story is something that's the reason we're here. You know, that's just one of many that we hear every day, and that's what we're trying to fix. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Joey Hopkins, Secretary of North Carolina DOT. I'm here this morning to address the challenges facing our DMV and express my gratitude to those supporting our efforts to improve service for all North Carolinians, people like Jocelyn. The DMV is a critical part of everyone's life, whether it's getting a driver license, renewing your plates, or getting a real ID. But as you've already heard, we have significant challenges at DMV. We have long wait times, difficulties booking appointments online, and an overwhelmed workforce that have frustrated many of you. These issues stem from a combination of factors. We've had a surge in population growth, over 2.5 million in the last 20 years. We have strained staffing levels, and we have the need for modernized systems. We hear your concerns, and we're committed to addressing them head on. You've met Paul Tyne, he's our new DMV commissioner, and I'm thrilled to have him lead this transformation. Paul brings a wealth of experience as a business owner, a former legislator, and a community leader. During his time at the General Assembly, he co-chaired the Transportation Appropriations Committee and served on the Joint Transportation Oversight Committee, giving him insight into complexities of our DOT systems. Paul knows how to get things done at the speed of business, and he's already hit the ground running to reduce wait times, enhance our website's usability, and empower our frontline staff to deliver exceptional service. I'm confident under his leadership that DMV will become more efficient.
All right, we have a special guest that we're about to bring on, so we're going to wrap this really quickly. The youngest state party chair in the country. And before I bring her on, it's Anderson Clayton. She's the leader of the North Carolina Democrats. We do want to put out, because we are a place that offers time to both sides, and we did speak to the Republican side earlier this week on a number of issues, including the president's lawsuit against North Carolina voter registration that's ongoing right now, and the entire ordeal about Allison Riggs, Jefferson Griffin. That entire situation really had to deal with the Trump lawsuit that we're seeing against this North Carolina voter registration. So this is why we wanted to bring in Chair Clayton at this time. Great to meet you, Miss Anderson Clayton. Thank you so much for your time. Obviously, you're making history yourself, being the youngest state party chair in the country. So I'll just get into the nitty gritty of it, and we'll kind of talk about that lawsuit. And for those folks that are listening, this kind of mirrors an issue that the Republican Appeals Court Judge Jefferson Griffin raised, trying to overturn Democratic Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs' election victory, throwing those votes. We had extensive reporting on that. Obviously, it was a months-long thing. So I'll open it up to you, starting there. What does this mean going forward for us? And really, as we're looking towards midterms for 2026, what type of impact could this lawsuit have? Obviously, the litigation is going to work itself out in court. But just give me your thoughts, if you would.
I mean, I think this is just another attack on Republicans to subvert democracy. And now we're seeing it from the Trump administration. And we have to say that the Jefferson Griffin playbook that they ran came straight out of the 2020 Trump playbook. Cleta Mitchell runs the Election Integrity Network. Her backyard is in Moore County, North Carolina right now. And we understand that the folks that are trying to help deny elections nationally feel like that they can come into a state and be able to utilize this as a petri dish situation to be able to take to other states. And we understand that the aspect of protecting every single voter, because none of these voters did anything wrong that Trump is suing against right now, and that the DOJ is coming down with a law. Hot voters is a federal protection. It's a federal law that grants protections to voters that got registered to vote before 2002, when the Help Americans Vote Act originally was passed. And we need everyone to understand that voters have done nothing wrong, and that they do not have to have or not need to go back and re-register to vote right now. This is a way for Republicans to help purge the voter rolls in North Carolina, and it's egregious.
Especially, like I said, as we look ahead towards midterms in 2026. This was filed in federal court on Tuesday. So what does the preparation look like from the Democratic side or the North Carolina side, right, to defend itself in this lawsuit? And this is specific to the lack of driver's license numbers, as you spoke to, partial Social Security numbers. And those are the things that have been said by the Trump administration. So can you clarify, if you can, where do we go from here? And then what should folks really be looking out for if a judge does rule that this is something they want to go with?
Look, everyone should go in North Carolina, if you're a registered voter right now, to the griffinlist.com. It is the website that we pulled together, that a great group called Triangle Blog out of Orange County pulled together to be able to help folks understand who actually is being challenged by Jefferson Griffin, or who was being challenged by Jefferson Griffin, because all of those folks can go in, you can search by your county, you can be able to understand if you're on the list or you know someone that is, because we do understand that we don't have friendly courts right now. And we know that North Carolina needs to be able to defend itself in 2026 from these type of attacks. And so we are encouraging people who maybe know a cousin, a friend, a relative, someone in your book club that may be on the list, but anywhere that you can go and check whether or not Republicans have challenged your vote, because you're their number one target coming in 2026. And we're prepared to litigate this as long as we possibly can in federal court. But we also know right now that we just had a 6-month court battle where Republican state courts were able to help Jefferson Griffin try to subvert this election. And just so everyone understands, the type of voters numbers that Trump is talking about. After 9/11 happened in 2002, they passed the Help Americans Vote Act to try to make sure that folks had a driver's license number or a social security number attached to your voter registration form. It was about election security and election integrity, right? But that doesn't mean that we negate the fact that in that federal law that passed, they grandfathered in people that have been voting in their communities for decades, because it is confusing when people have to go back and change their voter registration form after they've already registered to vote, when they did nothing wrong under the current law at that point in time. And so I need everyone to understand, A, we fully are prepared on the side of organizing to be able to fight this if we need to, but I also think that we need to understand that voters have done nothing wrong, and this lawsuit is bogus, to be quite frank.
Total sense. That makes total sense, because we have been speaking, or we did speak to people frustrated that their vote was one that could not or may not be counted, that they did everything correct. And that was one of the biggest complaints that we heard. So I can speak to that certain folks personally did have that fear. And you set me up perfectly for what I was going to ask next, Chair Clayton. How did the Democrats in North Carolina prepare for the midterms? There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of things happening, obviously, at the federal government level. There's been great leadership, I think, by the local state government. Obviously, Governor Stein is on it, and a number of other leaders across North Carolina. They're watching what is happening at the White House. So how do you guys prepare here in North Carolina for what is going to be probably a pretty tough battle come the midterms in 26?
We lock in on local races, and we make sure we've got a Democrat in every single county in North Carolina that can talk about the fact that we're going to have the most important Senate race in the entire country in 2026. And that also we've got to get Justice Earls reelected to the bench in 2026 as well, for the fate of our state to be able to actually have a balance of power in it again. And honestly, that looks like what we're going to be doing starting on Sunday. We're going around and we're doing a rural tour throughout 50 counties in North Carolina. I'm bringing Justice Earls out with me. We've got Congressman Don Davis that's going to be in Edgecombe in Rocky Mount with us on Sunday. So feel free to go to the ncdp.org website and help make sure that you are there if you're in Edgecombe or Nash or any of the surrounding counties and you want to come hear from your local representatives and your members of Congress. But it also means looking at places like Matthews and Huntersville. I mean, Democrats in 2023 were able to flip the Huntersville City Council, quite frankly, from red to blue. And we did that from getting on the ground and talking to people about what the City Council was able to accomplish. And I think that is going to be the most important thing for us, is to build back power at the local level everywhere across the state. And we did a lot of that in 2023. But we have a lot of staff right now on the ground that are able to help us do that in an even greater way in 2025. And that's going to set us up for real success in 2026 and beyond, because we're going to build the bench of local leaders of Democrats that can speak to issues in communities across the state.
I've got to talk about that beyond real quick, because, Chair Clayton, the 2026 midterms, as you just alluded to, are fast approaching. There's this new round of redistricting, though, just a few years away after the 2030 census, right? And then North Carolina Democrats, they are set, it seems like, to receive some real big support funding from the National Democratic Party to try and boost, right, the on-the-ground, boots-on-the-ground type of efforts. So is that something that is going to be, I guess, a mainstay in politics nowadays? I mean, obviously, the national platforms have always been a support system, but it seems like in the last couple of years, it is critical to get those national groups behind you guys. And especially, like, as I said, redistricting has been an issue. I mean, I was in Ohio 2 years ago, and they were doing the exact same thing, that entire process when Governor DeWine was there. So this is something that's not going away. Every state is seemingly going to deal with something like this. So how do you circumvent that? How do you guys, what does that look like for the foreseeable future?
You build the infrastructure that it takes to win those races. And we have a plan in North Carolina. We had one when we started in 2023 when I first got elected. It was taking back and making sure that we held a Supreme Court seat for the Democrats in 2024, which we did by 734 votes. And if people don't believe that every single door knock that you made or phone call that you made last election cycle mattered, every person that you talked to in the grocery store line about whether or not you knew about the courts, it did. And it did because of that. It also did because of people like Senator Woodson Bradley out of Mecklenburg County that won her race by about a 200 vote margin. It mattered for the people across this state, the work that we did. But that was 2024. 2026 for us looks like holding another Supreme Court seat. We knew that the pathway back to our courts was in 2028 when we have 3 Republican seats that are up. And then we were able to reverse partisan and racial gerrymandering, giving the pathway back to the Democratic Party to be able to maintain not only just state power, but federal power. The National Party and National Democrats ignore us at their own risk and at their own detriment. And we need folks to prioritize the South right now more than ever, because we understand that our party's base is here right now. And North Carolina also is the only state that's going to have 2 Senate flips from red to blue, honestly, in 2026 and in 2028. The power to me for our party nationally lies right here in North Carolina. And it's my job to go out there and convince everybody of that.
Last thing I gotta ask you here is about Allison Riggs, right? Not necessarily what this means for the court, because I think we understand, but people are asking for more parity on the court, kind of like an even split, right? Which is something we're not seeing at this point. How do we get to that? And does this appointment, having Ms. Riggs back there, does this get us closer to having that parity in some respects? Because obviously this has been a discussion, not just here, but I think across the nation as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. What I hear from even unaffiliateds and Republicans alike is they're saying we want to get back to a place where people can actually talk to each other again. And I think that means that you have a balance of power. And right now, Republicans have majority control of our state. They've got a supermajority in our state Senate. They have a majority in our state House. They have control of our courts. They have control of the Council of State. And they've also been able to strip away power from our governor and our attorney general last December before we broke the supermajority and were able to take away that power from them. I mean, Republicans in the state that we're in right now, if folks do not think that your life is getting any better, I'm like, we only have one political party to blame for that, and that is because we do not have enough balance right now in the state of North Carolina, and we need to give Democrats a fair fighting chance, because it is going to make our politics better across this state when we do.
Well, I can tell you, seeing you speak with passion and seeing some of our young individuals and leaders across the state, Republican, Democrat, no matter what, it seems like you guys are involved and engaged, and that's great for our democracy here in the United States. So I am enthused by that. We appreciate your time. The leader of the North Carolina Democrats, the youngest state party chair in the country. Congratulations and appreciate your time. This is Miss Anderson Clayton. Have a great night. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have another guest we want to get to after Ms. Clayton just spent a little time with us. It is Justice Anita Earls. It is not very often that we get a Supreme Court justice to meet with us or to come on our stream here on WCNC Plus. So we're going to work in the background to get her up here and speak with us. But I do want to give a little bit of background about her. She did get her law degree from Yale University, very prestigious, as we know. Was assumed office on January 3rd, 2019. These are 8-year terms, so we're coming up on another election, which will be in the 2026 midterms, and Justice Earls will be on that ballot. She is one of 2 Democrats on the bench, and I do believe, let me double check this, yes, the only black justice. So some great attributes and a brilliant mind in terms of understanding law in North Carolina, of course, and elsewhere. So we're going to talk to her a little bit about her reelection bid, as that is coming up in the next couple of months. If not, she's probably on the campaign trail already. But yeah, we're going to get her discussion and talk to her a little bit about what's ahead for her and why folks should vote for her. Obviously, we have a big election cycle coming up for us. But kind of to set the table just a little bit, the Trump lawsuit that we had discussed a little bit earlier, I do want to go back to this because it is something that we have been talking about and something that's going to be a crux of not just necessarily the argument, but it's putting North Carolina really in the crosshairs for midterms of 2026. So this happened on Tuesday. The Trump administration, they accused North Carolina's election board on Tuesday of violating federal law, and that was by failing to ensure voter registration records of some applicants, which contained identifying numbers. Again, this harkens back to similar approaches by Jefferson Griffin, and that entire situation, kind of at the crux of that, right, were certain ballots. They were looking at more than 60,000 at one point, went down to a couple hundred. But that's in and of itself really what we were discussing and reporting on for months, was this whole discussion. So the Justice Department sued in federal court, asking a judge, to force board officials to create a prompt method to obtain such numbers. So they want to have a clarification tool for these. So the department alleges that the state, North Carolina itself, and the board aren't complying with the 2002 Help America Vote Act, which is what you heard Chair the Chair Clayton speak about a little bit earlier, and what that dealt with, and really why that was instituted. So it is a very convoluted issue in some respects. Obviously, it'll make its way through the court, and then we will have updates both here on WCNC Plus, also on WCNC and our mobile app. I do want to bring in Justice Earls. Justice Earls, thank you so much for your time. We've been talking a little bit about who you are, not necessarily as a person, because I don't know in that respect, but obviously you went to Yale, a prestigious university, and your resume speaks for itself. You're on a re-election bid, I would say, it's an 8-year term, if I understand it correctly. So I wanted to ask you, starting off, what things should North Carolina voters know about you ahead of the 2026 midterms? And just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yes, hello, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I think it's most important that people know my record both on the bench, but also before I was elected in 2018. So I, for 30 years, was a civil rights attorney. Most of that time in North Carolina, I represented clients across the state in civil rights cases. So that means when people felt they were being discriminated against on their jobs, in voting rights cases, school desegregation cases. I also handled criminal defense and some family law. So I really had a general practice starting out the first 10 years in Charlotte with the Ferguson Stein law firm. But I think that's the most important thing for people to know is that before running for the court and before serving on the state Supreme Court, I had litigated cases representing ordinary folks across the state in a wide variety of issues.
It's great to know, and obviously great to have some understanding about where you've been and really what you'd like to work on. So I guess that's my next thing is you've been very vocal about making things more equitable, not necessarily just in North Carolina as a whole, but specifically on the Supreme Court, in the judicial system, in some respects. And I did want to ask you a little bit about if you're going to be taking that not necessarily as a mantle, but something that I think a lot of folks are kind of looking out for. They want access to that. I've always said it. If you can see it, you can be it. And I think you are actually doing that. So, what does that look like for you? Is that going to be something that you are trying to change in the future?
Well, what I can say is that I ran for the court initially in 2018, and I'm running for re-election now because I am committed to the concept and the principle of equal justice under the law. And that sounds very vague and abstract, but I've worked really hard to make it real and concrete. So that means, whether the party appealing their case in front of us is the state of North Carolina, whether it's an individual, whether it's a business, along all sorts of lines, it's important to me that I always approach every case understanding that we need to guarantee equal justice for everyone.
I was reading a little bit about your background. Kind of grew up in Seattle, which I think is such an eclectic background. But then, in the heartland of America, where you were in Missouri, grew up there. What things did you learn from and take from your childhood, or maybe even early adulthood, that now you're bringing into your office with you, litigating cases, those type of things?
Sure. Well, I am a mom and a grandma now, and my older son went to elementary and middle school in Charlotte, and so certainly those experiences have given me a good sense, as well as the work I did representing families and communities, given me a good sense of what ordinary folks face in this state. In terms of my own upbringing, I always say, and it's very true, that the reason why I wanted to be a lawyer and the reason why equal justice is so important to me is growing up in a mixed race family. My mother and father, my mother's white, my father's black. When they met, it was illegal for them to be married. And I saw the courage with which they faced those barriers, and I wanted to be a part of opening up opportunity for everyone. So that's in essence how my background has influenced how I approach the court. But I would also say that what I think a lot of people don't realize is that our court, even if you don't have a case in front of us, our court makes decisions that impact ordinary folks' lives all the time. So whether it's how much money will be spent on public education, what kind of opportunities your children might have in public schools, whether it's how much you pay for electricity, whether it's what you have to pay if you are uninsured and need treatment at an emergency room. There's just a wide range of types of cases that our court is making decisions that then impact your life.
I did ask Chair Anderson Clayton, the leader of the North Carolina Democrats, about parity on the Supreme Court or in the judicial system. And we kind of touched on it as well, especially with Allison Riggs now getting back into things and back into the office again. It's an elected, obviously, position, right? So you can't force people to be put in a position that they don't want to be. But I guess my question is, how important is it to have that balance of power back? Because even Chair Clayton was talking a little bit about how even Republicans and Democrats are coming now more towards the center of things and saying that they want to be able to have discussions with the other side of the aisle, meaningful discussions that actually create change. So it seems like it's very important to have parity, especially the judicial side of things. What's your take on that?
Well, I've always said that it's important to have a court. So we are 7 members on this court. We are charged with deliberating, which should mean that we listen to each other, hear each other's perspectives, understand each other's points of view, and that we represent the variety and diversity of lived experiences of people across the state. So to me, that means that we need diversity along a number of different lines. So in other words, along racial lines, gender, economic background, and professional background. I think it's important that we have people on our court who have worked in various areas of the law, because as a justice on the Supreme Court, we're generalists. And so we each come to the court with a background of what we did as lawyers. And it's really valuable, I think, to have lawyers from a variety of different types of background. But I would also say that really important to our democracy in this state is to have effective checks and balances. We have 3 branches of government at our state level, and they should be balanced. And when we have a court that is ready to rubber stamp whatever the legislature does, I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's what the founders and the folks who structured our state constitution intended. That's very different from what my colleagues believe. And so you see that reflected in our written opinions. But I say that to say that one opponent one Republican has already announced that she's running for my seat, Sarah Stevens. She's a member of the legislature, has been in the legislature for 17 years. And we already have on our court Justice Tamara Berenger, who was also in the state legislature. We have the Senate Majority Leader Phil Berger's son on our court. And I think that it's important that we have a court that is willing to fairly and impartially examine what the legislature does and make sure that it's consistent with the state constitution, because otherwise we're just giving up our role and our responsibility under that constitution to protect people's rights and to be a check and balance on the other 2 branches of government. So that's another way in which I know you were sort of asking about balance in terms of partisanship, but I also think balance in terms of the perspective that someone brings to the court matters a lot.
No, I think that answer hit the mark. So that was great. My last thing, and I usually try and ask this because I obviously had some very pointed questions. Anything that I'm missing that you wanted to elaborate on, tell our viewers, and I'm sure we'll probably ask you, Justice Earls, to come back on before 2026 midterms at some point. So hopefully you will have some time to do so. But yeah, any last comments, any last remarks that I missed that you wanted to just talk about?
Sure. Well, I just want to emphasize to all of your viewers and listeners how valuable it is that they are being informed, and that it's so important that people recognize their power as voters. And so to know what's at stake, to know what choices they have when they go to vote, to know why the Supreme Court matters so much. I mean, you just got to ask the question when you look at what happened in Justice Riggs' case, why why was the Republican Party willing to spend millions of dollars trying to litigate over whether she should take the seat that she received the most votes for? And so clearly our state courts matter now more than ever before. And I just really applaud folks who are willing to stay engaged, understand the issues, and be informed when they make their decisions at the ballot box.
Absolutely. It is such a privilege to be able to be in this nation and to cast a vote. I do not take that lightly. So I appreciate that you also hold those same values. So yes, I'm sure we'll contact you again and see you very soon. I know you've had a busy night, so I certainly appreciate your time. Stay safe and have a great weekend so much. Thank you. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
We are... Sorry about that. I had some mic issues. We are going to go back to this DMV pressure by the governor. He's got some good information that we did want to make sure that you heard. So we'll go back to it now.
Not performing the way that we need to. And we have no shortage of opportunities for improvement, as I like to say, in the organization. And so I'd like to pivot, though, and talk about our approach at DMV moving forward. Our new approach is to create a positive, customer-focused culture. And to start that off, we're setting lofty goals. I want us to become a premier customer service organization, not just a great DMV, but a premier customer service organization. In order to do that, we need to empower our frontline staff. To get there, I needed to understand what was going on. So I've been going to several different offices across the state, from the Outer Banks all the way out to the mountains and here in Raleigh. And I've triaged the lines. That's where you check their paperwork and find out if they have what they need, so they don't wait in line to then find out that they don't have what they need. I've been on road tests. A fine young man was very brave and let me ride along with him. And at 16, he did great, even driving a big old truck. So I was very proud of him there. I've listened to customers in the front line, and it's informed the changes that I'm announcing today. I'm supported in this effort by what I call Team DMV, and it starts with our staff. We've got a great staff who want to do a great job, but they haven't been empowered to get there, whether it's the systems or the processes or the facilities themselves. And so it's my job and our support staff's job to make sure that they have those resources moving forward. It also starts with the governor, who has made it very clear that this is a priority for the state to fix this problem, and I appreciate that support. The secretary has given me every bit of resource inside of DOT that I could possibly ask for, from HR to budgeting, and they have been extremely helpful and empowering to help me do my job. The legislature, as we said, they've put in on the House side some budget items that would definitely be helpful, and the Senate has signaled to us that they'd like to support us as well. And then the auditor, as you mentioned before, having bad data in the beginning of showing up to a job makes it very difficult to make good decisions, and the auditor's work has really helped us to understand where we are as far as wait times and different items inside that we can improve on. So let me talk about some of the early actions that we've taken. First, the customer focus. It starts with owning the experience from when our customers show up. It's not when they get to the front of the line. It's not when they get in front of one of our folks, one of our examiners. It's owning that customer experience from when they get out of the car and they get in line. And so that's why triage, making sure we check people's paperwork, has been a major push, a major initiative for us. We've asked for volunteers from inside of the organization to come back out in the field and help us with that. We've also gotten some interns that we're utilizing during the summer, which is our biggest time period, our biggest crunch. We have 3 pilots that we're focusing on right now. This office is one of them, and it's all about throughput. How can we get people in and out of our offices as quickly as possible? We've learned some great lessons already, and we've seen some indicating some ways to reduce our wait time, and we're going to be implementing those in the next couple of weeks. I've got 3 levers in which I can keep people moving through the office. One is our examiners and what we do in the office. One is our phone system, when people call and make questions and have questions, and the other is our website. The more we can do in our website, the better. And so we've done some real enhancements already there. There's a new Real ID tool with that. If you're wondering if you need Real ID, go to our website. It's right there on the front of the page. It'll take you through a step-by-step process and then answer that question if you really need one. If you don't need one right now, please wait until we can clear out this backlog, and that'll help you determine. If you do need one, there's another set of questions, and it'll take you through it, and it'll tell you the right documents so you show up ready to go. We've also changed the website because people don't go to our website for information. They go to our website to perform jobs. They want to take care of a task. So what we've done there is we've reorganized it so it's very clear if you're trying to renew a license or get your real ID, what path you go on, and that came out last week. And then we're communicating at the customer's level. If we're going to make changes and improvements, we need to communicate those so you know how to interact with DMV the best way that you can. So we now have social media. We didn't have that in the past. You can join us on Facebook and see what we've got going on. And then we've also gotten ncdmv.gov. That went live yesterday. That just makes us easier to locate and find. And then accessibility. We have 20 offices that will have Saturday hours starting tomorrow. That's 4 more than we've had in the past. And then we've also, to create more accessibility, we've been temporarily moving some central staff out that were already trained as examiners but have moved up. We've gotten some volunteers that we can put back in the field to help with the lines this summer. Early actions in regards to our front line. We've reorganized to empower our entire organization. We have a COO position that is open right now. They are there to make sure our operations run cleanly day to day. And then we have a deputy commissioner of modernization. Their job is the big change, the new systems, the new processes that we need as we move forward. And the governor has been very gracious in allowing us a gentleman who is serving in that capacity on an interim basis. We have new core principles to promote problem solving. Service, efficiency, agility, and accountability. Service because we serve the people of North Carolina and the businesses of North Carolina first and foremost. Efficiency because we need to do everything quickly and correctly the first time. Agility, we need to be able to problem solve and meet the customer where they are. And then accountability is not to point fingers at our people, it's to empower them and say you're accountable for your job, so go make it work the way that it needs to work. A great place to work equals a great place to visit. So that's another focus spot, and we need to keep great people like Tanika here there. So we have changed, we've created a career path for our examiners. We've also increased their pay so that we recruit and keep the folks that we've got there. We've ordered new equipment. We've also ordered new uniforms. It's the first time in 5 years. We need people to have pride in their work and feel good about what they do in order to give a great experience to our consumers. But we definitely have a long way to go. These are just the first projects that we're announcing. They're not going to help the people that are standing in line today. They're not going to help the people that are looking for appointments today. But know that we are working to fix those problems as we move forward. We have great people in DMV. My job is to empower them. But I'm asking for your patience during the summer while we make our changes. This is our highest time. Know that we're working. Know that these folks have not been empowered the way that they need to, and that's my job to do that. So I have not gotten them there yet, so I apologize for that, and to all the folks that are standing in line and frustrated with the way that they receive our services. So the last thing is we're going to make a lot of changes, which means I won't get them all right. If we're going to move this fast, we're going to have to make some failures along the way. I would like your feedback. And so there's different ways to do it. You can go to our website, click Help, and then you can enter comments there, and we're looking at those. You can tag NCDMV on social media, and we'll pick it up there. Or you can call 919-715-7000 and let us know how things are working or not working for you. Now, y'all are in for a treat because Ms. Tanika Williams, our senior examiner here, has built a culture, even with all these frustrating things. I walked in the office today and just said, hey, this is what's going on. I got my boss and my boss's boss here, and we're here to talk about our issues and how we're going to move forward. And a woman stopped me. She goes, I just got to tell you, the people here, even with the line and everything else, are great. And that's largely the responsibility of Ms. Tanika Williams.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Raleigh East office. I am Tanika Williams, the senior here. I have been with the DMV for 10 years, and I have been the senior examiner here at this office for 4 years. I opened this office from the ground up. As you saw as you came in today, I have a very busy office. It's obvious we need a little more people to meet the demand here. We only have 7 full employee positions for our 15-station office. On average, the customers are waiting a little more than 3.5 hours. We've been piloting a walk-in only service here with no appointments since May 5th. The line starts moving first thing in the morning at 7 as opposed to when it was before at 12 noon. Everyone shows up, first come, first in, first out without their appointments. Things are getting better, but we still have a long way to go. Wait times are starting to move down and the morale is up. I feel the morale is starting from the head with the supervisor. I feel like my team likes it, and most importantly, the customers are able to see it. Before I get back to work, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for hearing us and also seeing us. It was nice to meet everyone today, the secretary, the governor, as well as meeting our commissioner, and thank you for all the progress that has gone on thus far to help us to get to where we are headed. Commissioners, time. It was great to see you again today, and thank you for listening and for the support you have given us. It means more than you know. And now I have the honor of introducing our governor. I'm feeling pretty good today, y'all, because I feel special that I get to introduce the governor. It's not uncommon for a commissioner to stop by an office and see all the examiners and greet and meet everyone. Also to have the secretary here as well, or the governor come into your office. It's a first. I've got all 3 in one day on a great Friday, so I'm grateful. Josh Stein is honored to serve as North Carolina